Ready to begin round 3. Same order. Our first reader is Annetta Martin. And this time, I think, in the interest of just moving things along, I'm going to give the name of the reader and their favorite poet. Hers is Diane Wachowski, because she's so raw.
Before the Birth of One of Her Children, by Anne Bradstreet. All things within this fading world hath end. Adversity doth still our joys attend. No ties so strong, no friends so dear and sweet, but with death's parting blow are sure to meet. The sentence passed is most irrevocable, a common thing, yet oh, inevitable. How soon, my dear, death may my steps attend? How soon it may be thy lot to lose thy friend? We are both ignorant, yet love bids me these farewell lines to recommend to thee, that when the knot's untied that made us one, I may seem thine, who in effect am none. And if I see not half my days that's due, what nature would, God grant to yours and you. The many faults that well you know I have, let be interred in my oblivious grave. If any worth or virtue were in me, let that live freshly in thy memory. And when thou feel'st no grief, as I no harms, yet love thy dead who long lay in thine arms. And when thy loss shall be repaid with gains, look to my little babes, my dear remains. And if thou love thyself or lov'st me, these, O protect from stepdame's injury. And if chance to thine eyes shall bring this verse, with some sad sighs, honor my absent hearse. And kiss this paper for thy love's dear sake, who with salt tears this last farewell did take.
Rosalind Gravrock from Holy Family Home School. Her favorite poet is Edward Rowland Still.
Barbara Frietchie by John Greenleaf Whittier. Up from the meadows rich with corn, clear in the cool September morn, the clustered spires of Frederick stand, green-walled by the hills of Maryland. Round about them, orchards sweep, apple and peach tree fruited deep, fair as a garden of the Lord to the eyes of the famished rebel horde. On that pleasant morn of the early fall, when Lee marched over the mountain wall, over the mountains winding down, horse and foot into Fredericktown, 40 flags with their silver stars, 40 flags with their crimson bars flapped in the morning wind. The sun of noon looked down and saw not one. Up rose old Barbara Frietchie then, bowed with her 80 years and 10, bravest of all in Fredericktown. She took up the flag the men hauled down. In her attic window, the staff she set to show that one heart was loyal yet. Up the street came the rebel tread, Stonewall Jackson riding ahead. Under his slouched hat, left and right he glanced. The old flag met his sight. Halt! The dust-brown ranks stood fast. Fire! Out blazed the rifle blast. It shivered the window, pane and sash. It rent the banner with seam and gash. Quick as it fell from the broken staff, Dame Barbara snatched the silken scarf. She leaned far out on the windowsill and shook it forth with the royal will. Shoot, if you must, this old gray head, but spare your country's flag, she said. A shade of sadness, a blush of shame over the face of the leader came. The nobler nature within him stirred to life at that woman's deed and word. Who touches a hair of yon gray head dies like a dog. March on, he said. All day long through Frederick Street sounded the tread of marching feet. All day long that free flag tossed over the heads of the rebel host. Ever its torn folds rose and fell on the loyal winds that loved it well. And through the hill gaps, sunset light shone over it with a warm good night. Barbara Frietchie's work is o'er, and the rebel rides on his raids no more. Honor to her, and let a tear fall for her sake on Stonewall's bier. Over Barbara Frietchie's grave, flag of freedom and union wave. Peace and order and beauty draw round thy symbol of light and law. And ever the stars above look down on thy stars below in Fredericktown.
Isabel Karp is up next from Madison Memorial. She wasn't satisfied with one favorite poet. Shakespeare, Mary Oliver, Catherine Talbot. Isabel Karp.
The Metal and the Flower by P.K. Page. Intractable between them grows a garden of barbed wire and roses. Burning briars like flames devour their too innocent attire. Dare they meet? The blackened wire tears the intervening air. Trespassers have wandered through, texture of flesh and petals. Dogs like arrows moved along pathways that their noses knew. While the two who laid it out find the metal and the flower fatal underfoot. Black and white at midnight glows this garden of barbed wire and roses. Burning, doused with darkness, roses burn coolly as a rainy moon. Beneath a rainy moon or none, silver the sheath on barb and thorn. Change the garden, scale and plan, wall it, make it annual. There the briery flower grew, there the brambled wire ran. While they sleep, the garden grows. Deepest wish annuls the will, perfect still the wire and rose.
Esther O'Brien from Rhinelander High School, a senior. Her favorite poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Esther O'Brien.
What Work Is by Philip Levine. We stand in the rain in a long line, waiting at Ford Highland Park for work. You know what work is. If you're old enough to read this, you know what work is, although you may not do it. Forget you. This is about waiting, shifting from one foot to another, feeling the light rain falling like mist into your hair, blurring your vision until you think you see your own brother ahead of you, maybe 10 places. You rub your glasses with your fingers, and of course, it's someone else's brother, narrower across the shoulder than yours, but with the same sad slouch, the grin that does not hide the stubbornness, the sad refusal to give in to rain, to the hours of wasted waiting, to the knowledge that somewhere ahead a man is waiting who will say, "No, we're not hiring today," for any reason he wants. You love your brother. Now suddenly you can hardly stand the love flooding you for your brother, who's not beside you or behind or ahead because he's home, trying to sleep off a miserable night shift at Cadillac so he can get up before noon to study his German. Works 8 hours a night so he can sing Wagner, the opera you hate most, the worst music ever invented. How long has it been since you told him you loved him, held his wide shoulders, opened your eyes wide, and said those words, and maybe kissed his cheek? You've never done something so simple, so obvious, not because you're too young or too dumb, not because you're jealous or even mean or incapable of crying in the presence of another man. No, just because you don't know what work is.
Natalie Steiner is from Wrightstown High School. Her favorite poet is Shel Silverstein.
Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, we see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing that we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like eagle rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty.
Lily Veldren is next from James Madison Memorial High School. We're building momentum for a new favorite poet, Shel Silverstein.
Poor Angels by Edward Hirsch. At this hour, the soul floats weightlessly through the city streets, speechless and invisible, astonished by the smoky blend of grays and gold seeping out of the air, the dark halftones of dusk suddenly filling the urban sky, while the body sits listlessly by the window, sullen and heavy, too exhausted to move, too weary to stand up or to lie down. At this hour, the soul is like a yellow wing slipping through the treetops, a little ecstatic cloud hovering over the sidewalks, calling out to the approaching night, "Amaze me!
amaze me, while the body sits glumly by the window, listening to the clear summons of the dead, transparent as glass, clairvoyant as crystal. Some nights, it is almost ready to join them. Oh, this is a strange, unlikely tethering, a furious grafting of the quick and the slow. When the soul flies up, the body sinks down, and all night locked in the same cramped room. They go on quarreling, stubbornly threatening to leave each other, wordlessly filling the air with the sound of a low, internal burning. How long can this bewildering marriage last? At midnight, the soul dreams of a small fire of stars flaming on the other side of the sky, but the body stares into an empty night sheen, a hollowed-eyed darkness. Poor, luckless angels, feverish old loves, don't separate yet. Let what rises live with what descends.
Lydia Wilds is from Veritas Academy. Her favorite poet, Ogden Nash.
For the Young Who Want To, by Marge Piercy. Talent is what they say you have after the novel is published and favorably reviewed. Beforehand, what you have is a tedious delusion, a hobby, like knitting. Work is what you have done after the play is produced and the audience claps. Before that, friends keep asking when you are planning to go out and get a job. Genius is what they know you had after the 3rd volume of Remarkable Poems. Earlier, they accuse you of withdrawing, ask why you don't have a baby, call you a bum. The reason people want MFAs, take workshops with fancy names, when all you can really learn is a few techniques, typing instructions, and somebody else's mannerisms, is that every artist lacks a license to hang on the wall, like your optician, your vet, proving you may be a clumsy sadist whose fillings fall into the stew, but you're certified a dentist. The real writer is one who really writes. Talent is an invention, like phlogiston, after the fact of fire. Work is its own cure. You have to like it better than being loved.
Anna Wolfs is next from Arrowhead High School. Her favorite poet, Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Hap by Thomas Hardy. If but some vengeful god would call to me from up the sky and laugh, thou suffering thing, know that thy sorrow is my ecstasy, that thy love's loss is my hate's profiting. Then would I bear it, clench myself and die, steeled by the sense of ire, unmerited, half-eased, in that a powerfuler than I had willed and meted me the tears I shed. But not so. How arrives it? Joy lies slain. And why unblooms the best hope ever sown? Crass casualty obstructs the sun and rain. And dicing time for gladness casts a moan. These purblind doomsters had as readily strown blisses about my pilgrimage as pain.
We have reached the penultimate moment, and it's going to take us a few more minutes. How long do you think, Jackie? 10? To reach the ultimate moment everybody's been waiting for? So we'll let you go, but first, let me say just a couple of things. I think there are 8 finalists who are 8 winners lined up in front of me today. I don't know that... I have to say I'm glad I don't have to choose between you, because I don't think I could, so thank you. I also think we ought to thank Stanley Marcus for playing for us today. And we'll probably thank him for playing a little more while we wait for the results to come out. Let me also say that I don't think anybody has so far thanked Jackie Martindale for making this happen. Maybe Stephanie did at the beginning, but, you know. And a round of applause for our judges and aides, Bruce Dethlefsen, Stephanie Klett, Wendy Vardaman, and our videographer, Brian Alberth. Special thanks to Kathy Nelson, Lois Soberlich, Andrea Musher, Kate Larkin, and Jerry Crone, and to Gaylord Catering for making sure that we are not all rumbling as we stand up here. So I'll ask you to be patient.